Good morning, good afternoon and good evening. This is We Are The One, Lincolnshire FA's official grassroots football podcast where we speak to the volunteers who make football happen in our area. This week we're speaking to Jason Land, our official disability football ambassador, and he is also the head coach of Grimsby Town Ability Counts League disability football team. We speak about his experiences playing for England. We speak about the difference in coaching disability football and the growth of the disability pathway in our area in recent years. Enjoy. Jason Land, Jason, do you want to tell us all the brilliant roles that you've got in grassroots football?
So currently I am the head coach and executive committee member at Grimsby Town Ability Counts Football Club. I am the disability and inclusion officer for Grimsby Town Foundation, which is the charitable arm of the professional football club. And I'm also Lincolnshire's disability football ambassador.
Fantastic. And in terms of your previous sort of playing experience in football, you've got quite a unique past. Do you want to just give us a bit of insight into that as well?
Yeah, I can do. I mean, played grassroots football as a kid, sort of same as everybody else. I've got a disability myself. I've got a visual impairment. And that sort of came to me not at the beginning of my life. It came out when I was like 14, 15 years old. So until life then, everything was just normal, played mainstream football. I actually moved away from home to college to Loughborough when I was 16 and got involved with playing visually impaired football in the National League with Loughborough. And that was my first ever experience really of sort of disability football, competitive mainstream football as potentially like a young adult, sort of 16, and then just been involved in the game since then.
And you touched on before we started recording that you played for England as well.
Yeah, so as well as sort of playing for Loughborough in the visually impaired league, played for Grimsby Town Ability Counts team when it was in its infancy and stuff, and was very honoured to be part of like the first ever Pan Disability England team. Played a few games, played the first game ever against Belgium down in London, and then been involved in the visually impaired setup, been involved with England and stuff at some tournaments and things in the past as well.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned that you've got a visual impairment yourself.
I have, yeah.
And you weren't born with that. That developed at, did you say the age of about 14, 15?
Yeah, 14, 15. It's something that I've got a brother in. He's got exactly the same thing. His sort of came out a lot earlier in life than myself. But mine, it didn't really start showing until I was about 14, yeah.
And how does that, if you don't mind me asking, how does that impact not just sort of your footballing life and how did that affect your playing, but then how does that affect sort of everyday life as well?
It has an impact for sure, and it makes things a bit harder. And there's definitely a few more barriers to overcome and stuff. But I'm quite an optimistic person. I don't really sort of let it stop me. There's, like I say, there's obstacles and things, but just crack on.
Super. So how did you initially get into into the role that you've now got in grassroots football, and how long have you been doing that for?
So I've been involved really for 20 plus years as sort of not just a player, as a sort of an official as well, by being like the coach with the Grimsby Town team, and sort of me and my dad taking that over like 20 years ago, the team, and being involved doing the coaching, the secretary work, the treasurer work, a bit of absolutely everything. So 20 years plus.
Fantastic. And was there a specific element of that you enjoyed more than others? Or?
To be fair, I always first and foremost loved playing myself and playing competitive and trying to be the best you can be. But just being involved in grassroots football, all aspects of it, is great to be involved with. Being coaching sort of new players and inspiring them, but also being part of that committee and that sort of football family, and seeing people grow and develop and learn new skills as well as the football skills is definitely great to see.
So would you say that being part of that sort of bigger community and that bigger picture of being able to sort of give something back, that's potentially what you enjoy about being like an active volunteer in football, and that's the strong element?
Massively, and to feel like I touched on before, being part of a family, it's very unique to bring sort of people together with the same interest, the same sort of common goal, and sort of build on that. It's great to be a part of, and to have sort of pockets of that replicated all over the county and sort of other disability teams things. It's just great to feel like of a sort of a tight family yourself with your own close-knit group in Grimsby, but also, like I say, that's replicated all over the county, and to meet those people on a monthly basis and stuff is great.
And you've sort of touched on it a little bit, but what impact have you seen that have on the wider community? The stuff that not only you've been doing, but the club have been doing as well, and other clubs as well.
Yeah, well, disability football has changed absolutely massively throughout the years that I've been involved with it. Disability football's never ever been in such a better place, sort of to play in, to participate in, to just dip in and out casually, or just play for fun. But for people wanting to be involved in it, there's just so much available now. Before, back in the day, it was like you're doing everything off your own back, trying to find things out yourself. There's so much help available, and it's really, really great to see.
And what impact does have the role that you've now got, the active role that you've got in grassroots football? What impact does that have on you personally as well?
It's my whole life. You can't just do it as a job and say it's Monday to Friday 9 to 5. It sort of, you have to live it, you have to be it. It sort of consumes you sometimes in a negative way, taking up too much of your time and that kind of stuff. But no, it impacts on me great, just to work with great people, to sort of help potentially inspire people to do bigger, better things, and just be involved in football and scoring goals and having fun.
Super. So why is it important, in your own opinion, why is it important for clubs to have their own disability pathway or provide disability opportunities?
It's mega important for inclusivity. Like, grassroots football clubs have probably got lots and lots of participants themselves that are already on their sort of player pathways of grassroots football, but just don't even realise it. But sort of those people will maybe drop out because they can't quite deal with the sort of grassroots mainstream formats of the game and stuff like that. So for them to offer a football opportunity for people, whether that's to be in that sort of competitive environment, but a more sort of thought out, supported way, or just a turn up and play session, just a safe space for people to go and enjoy football, meet new friends, that kind of stuff. It's massive for communities to be involved in. It's better for the football clubs to sort of reach out to a wider sort of audience within their local communities as well.
And you mentioned before about players being involved who maybe don't feel like, who have got disabilities, maybe don't feel like they necessarily fit within, I suppose the term would be mainstream sort of grassroots football. Yeah. Who do you think it's on to maybe understand that player potentially is struggling, and there's different options, such as playing in the Ability Counts League, or different options. Who's that on, do you think?
Well, I think it's on a bit of everybody, to be fair. Grassroots football clubs have their own sort of support networks with safeguarding officers, welfare officers, that kind of stuff. But it's just about being aware and what's out there and available, instead of saying, hang on a minute, we can't quite deal with you, we'll see you later. It's, well, actually, your needs are this, let's try get you involved in this. And again, going back to people being included, things like that.
Yeah, and a few months ago now, we obviously had Neurodiversity Awareness Month, and as part of that, Lincolnshire FA ran 3 sort of events. One was obviously an online webinar, and then there was a couple of face-to-face events as well. Neurodiversity is an ever-growing sort of conversation in terms of players who have got ADHD or autism, and how, in your opinion, do you think that sort of clubs or coaches specifically can tailor their delivery and potentially look at different options for those players, who are autistic or have ADHD?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's about not being afraid, not thinking, I can't do this. And it's, again, going back to being aware, there's so much support available for coaches. Like contacting the local football association can just hook them up with so many different people, like coach mentors to come out to help support their coaches, to include people in sessions and things like that. There's just so much sort of available that people need to be sort of aware about, who maybe don't at the minute.
And what difference can that make to a player? So let's say, a coach has identified the fact that, maybe struggling with one or two things and, let's say a player is autistic. What difference can it make that a coach is able to either tailor their delivery or be able to identify ways that that player can learn differently to others? What impact can that have on the individual?
It's absolutely huge on individuals. You go from an environment which feels like they're an outsider, sort of trying to tap in, doesn't feel right, doesn't sort of fit, to them, their needs being met and it being about them and them enjoying it and that kind of stuff. And not just for that sort of hour a week or a couple of times a week playing football, that can benefit their whole life, something to look forward to ahead of going to like training, seeing the friends, that kind of stuff, and could just have a bigger positive impact on people's lives rather than, like I say, just that sort of concentrated football time.
Yeah. And like ability counts teams and disability specific teams are obviously there for those who want to be in that environment and want to have that greater sense of belonging and feel like it's that football is for them. But there may also be players in the mainstream pathway who have got disabilities who want to play in the mainstream pathway, and potentially coaches being able to identify their needs and tailor things to them means that there's a place regardless whether that's in the disability pathway or whether it's in the mainstream as well. Do you think it's important to make sure that regardless of where the player wants to play and play their football, they're catered for either way?
Yeah, 100%. Sort of echo what you say, and without trying to sound too corporate, like the FA's strategy for disability football is to have football your way, and it is just as simple as that. If mainstream fits for that player and they feel that's the right place for them to be, that's great. They're playing great standard of football, happy. But if not, there's these other things available. Let's try get as many people playing football as we can.
And you mentioned that disability football has never been in such a healthy position as what it is right now. I mean, you've mentioned that you've obviously played for England, and there's obviously the Paratalent sort of pathway and the Paratalent hub that's ongoing at the minute to try and provide the disability pathway with opportunities to play for England. How big an opportunity is that for people who are playing in the disability pathway?
It's absolutely huge. Sort of mainstream football, England, as a football player, everybody aspires to sort of play for their country, represent, emulate such sort of famous people. And it's no different for somebody with a disability. Giving them the chance to represent their country, to sing the national anthem, to pull the shirt on is absolutely incredible. And I don't know if you've been to St George's Park, but they've got a big cap wall there. And everybody who ever played for England, their caps are sort of on the wall, whether you've got a disability, you haven't got a disability, whether you're like Sir Geoff Hurst or you're Steve Daly, captain for many years of the visually impaired football team. Like, everybody's celebrated on the wall together, and that's what it's about.
Fantastic. Is your name on the wall?
It's not, no.
Is it not?
Not enough.
Oh.
Not enough.
I thought I was about to go name hunting on
no, definitely not.
So obviously, in terms of people being able to play for England, and the Disability Cup is obviously live on TNT Sport and is sort of televised. The finals are televised every year. Why is representation like that, and for players who are competing in the disability pathway or maybe aren't yet, and don't feel like football is for them right now? Why is that sort of representation and visually being able to see people like them playing football at a high level? Why is that so important?
It's really, really important to have that sort of visual representation, like you say it, so people can relate. That's me. I could be that person there, rather than the sort of just mainstream standard football that you get on the telly, Premier League, that kind of stuff. If people are seeing themselves and can relate to that, it's super, super empowering, to be fair.
It's the feeling of, I suppose, if you see it, you can be it.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Do you think that then potentially has a greater impact than potentially people even realise? So they might see, the FA Disability Cup final on TNT Sport and think, actually, I can do that. That's a bit of me.
Absolutely, but not just for sort of players of that, but for spectators, and everybody has such a preconception of what they think disability is, what they think disability football sort of is about, and people often watch these games and are like, wow, that standard of football is absolutely astronomical. Like, we just thought it wasn't going to be like that. And just going back to just more people having exposure to stuff and seeing it is just empowering, inspiring for so many people.
And you saying that is actually sort of, remind me. So a few weeks ago we had the County Disability Cup finals, the first ever. We'll come on to that in a little bit, but as you sort of said, like you're not necessarily expecting such a high standard, but the standard is ridiculously high. I mean, even something like the goalkeeping and the saves, you're sort of looking at like your jaws on the floor. You're like, oh my God, like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, incredible.
In terms of how the disability football landscape has changed over the years, sort of touched on it earlier, but I sort of want to dive a little bit more into it. So, where has it come from to sort of where it is now? What does it look like now, and where's that come from?
So when I first sort of got involved, it was a national 11-a-side sort of disability competition. Obviously, lots and lots of travel. You could be playing a team in London one week, up Middlesbrough the sort of next week. There wasn't that many teams sort of competing in it. It was not many in the north, sort of concentrated in the south, and then that sort of fell apart. And it became sort of semi-regional, where we had to play 7-a-side in a sort of a Yorkshire league, which again was sort of great at the time, but very basic. And then sort of FA stuff got filtered through with strategies and landscape of wanting it to look like. And we then began to play our football back in Lincolnshire, and sort of sat on the committee for the league at its origins, really, and sort of helped shape that. So we've gone from playing all over the country, very ad hoc, to travelling regionally to Yorkshire as a minimum distance, to now playing in our own county. And there have been lots and lots of established great teams within Lincolnshire, especially at the open age group of 16 plus, and it's ever growing, ever expanding. And with work that they're doing with the under 16s stuff, that could mirror the open age stuff in the future for sure.
So in Lincolnshire now, we've got a thriving Ability Counts League. How has that changed over the recent years as well?
Yeah, so the Ability Counts League is growing sort of every year. There's lots of work going on behind the scenes to grow that. And it's gone from sort of one division at its creation of a sort of handful of teams. Now we have 3 sort of ability banding leagues with lots of teams in each of the leagues.
Fantastic. And how has the club changed as well? Because obviously you've been involved with Grimsby Town for quite a long time now. So how has the club and the Ability Counts team within that changed as well?
It's changed massively. Like I say, when I first sort of joined 20 plus years ago as a player, we was 11-a-side sort of team that did a lot of travelling, and then that transitioned to sort of 7-a-side. Again, just one team, and then changing to the 5-a-side format that we've had in Lincolnshire for quite a few years now. And again, just going from one of those teams to now having 4 teams, which is absolutely amazing. The growth that we've had and the amount of people that were wanting to be involved and play football with us. But instead of just thinking about that, and we've had to think about lots of other things about how we're going to recruit, how do we sort of get where we're getting players from, and that's made us think about under 16s and having participation sessions as sort of feeder things and stuff. So it's gone from a very small sort of one team to multiple teams juggling lots of different things, but it's all great stuff.
Fantastic. So with your Lincolnshire FA Disability Football Ambassador hat on now, so
Yep.
There may be people from clubs who are listening to this who will, be thinking, oh, we need to start a disability pathway at our club. What are the steps that clubs can do? So obviously there's the disability football sort of club toolkit now, and there's Comets, which is another sort of FA program that's looking to help clubs set up disability provision and sort of get the ball rolling in that aspect. So what can clubs do now to effectively get that ball rolling?
Yeah, so some of the stuff you mentioned there is absolutely amazing things that clubs like the toolkit for clubs, they can go through checklists and stuff and see what steps they need to take to get involved in disability football. I think a big one is having a driver at your football club, whether that be a parent of somebody with disability or just somebody having a mega passionate about it, and get it embedded in your club at a sort of committee level. Is absolutely great. And then once you can do that, come speak to us at the County FA. The disability manager is sort of on hand to advise that kind of stuff, or contacting myself as an ambassador to sort of talk through your things that we've done at Grimsby, and come help you face to face, or whether that be on the phone or a Teams call. There's lots and lots of stuff.
So as our disability football ambassador, how do you sort of work with clubs? What does that role sort of look like, and what can clubs, if they wanted to reach out to you, what can they sort of expect in terms of the support that you're able to offer them?
Yeah, so again, lots of different mediums, whether that's a phone call, just reassuring and talking through experience, the steps they need to take, where to find the information, that kind of stuff, or I can come and visit them at their clubs and have a look around and just signpost them to so much more support than just myself, whether that's like some coaching support for their coaches that want to get involved in the session, to go and speak into the committee, to go and speak to potential parents and stuff. It's so much available for clubs.
And you've been in this role for a little while now, so how's it been effectively, and how have you engaged with lots of clubs who are looking to begin their disability pathway within?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been in post about a year now, and sort of with timelines of sort of waiting for things to get in place, like the club training specifically for clubs to take their first steps into disability football. We've sort of had to wait until sort of that's gone out, seeing the interest of the clubs, and then sort of hook up with them. So it's a little bit of a slow starter to begin with, but now working with teams in the south of the county and close to Grimsby, a place called Louth, looking to start a disability provision there. We've been having meetings and giving them support of the steps and things they need to take, and it's just great to see that there's different other pockets of the county where we haven't had sort of disability taking place that are now potentially popping up and hoping to offer these provisions. It's really great that we're just colouring in the sort of map of the county of availability of football for people with disabilities.
Fantastic. So putting your now coaching hat back on, so what different considerations do coaches, not just yourself as a coach, but sort of coaches in general and clubs need to have when delivering disability football?
I mean, I touched on it earlier. A massive one is just don't be afraid. At the end of the day, it's football. Football's going to look a certain type of way. Yes, some people might need additional support or sort of adaptations and stuff, and that's absolutely fine. And just knowing that the support is out there, don't feel overwhelmed by it. Like just reach out, like, and there you go. Start your journey.
Fantastic. So, what are the biggest challenges that you face within your role? As a coach within the club, as our disability football ambassador, what are those challenges?
There's quite a lot of challenges, as there is for sort of normal mainstream sort of football, if you will, but those things are sort of heightened massively with people with disabilities, especially regarding like getting the facility right so it's accessible for everybody. There's lots of stuff there, like the toilets are accessible, that kind of stuff. It's like well lit, that kind of stuff. So there is a lot of sort of extra things you need to think about, and barriers and stuff, but barriers can come down. It's like, don't need to sort of talk about necessarily those challenges. It's all about the positive of there is stuff out there is that help out there, and let's get these barriers smashed.
And because it's pan-disability football, obviously there could be a wide range of disabilities that you're sort of working with as a coach. Do you have to sort of have a level of understanding of a variety of different disabilities and how that might be tailored to each individual? Or?
Yeah, 100%. Like you might have someone with a physical disability, cerebral palsy, for instance, who their mobility might not be as good as somebody else. So just sort of being conscious about like them fatiguing a bit easier, or sort of not being as agile as other people if you're doing sort of quick feet sessions as warm-ups and that kind of stuff there. So there is lots of little considerations to think about, but like I say, at the end of the day, it is football, and there is stuff out there to sort of fall back on and have a look if you need it.
And just to provide a bit of insight, I suppose, for someone who might be listening to this who does have a disability, who wants to get involved in disability football, whether that be with your team or with another team, what range of disabilities do you work with? So obviously we touched on cerebral palsy there, we've sort of touched on autism and ADHD and a variety of different different disabilities. What's the sort of range that there is?
So yeah, there's obviously the Lincolnshire League and the teams that we have are predominantly pan-disability footballs, but that could entail like mental health illnesses, conditions, which to look at something like that, you might think, my God, what's your disability and stuff, which is incredible that we can just offer a safe space for them to come play football, to somebody with cerebral palsy, to people with hearing impairments and physical impairments. But like I alluded to earlier, we have different ability bandings of leagues. So you're not going to be sort of playing out of your depth, if that makes sense. You're always going to be playing with somebody of sort of similar impairment stroke ability to yourself.
And you sort of touched on it there around not all disabilities being visible. Why is it important, do you think, to sort of break down that barrier and sort of develop that understanding for people that not all disabilities are visible? So someone who might have been watching the County Disability Cup finals may have been sort of looking and thinking, there's potentially players who don't have visible disabilities there. Why is that important to change that narrative, I suppose?
It's really important to change that narrative because people feel isolated and alone and things like that, and to just sort of showcase that. And again, we go back to that visual representation. That's me. People relating to that is just really powerful.
Yeah, 100%. So we've sort of danced around the County Disability Cup finals, and we will start talking about that now. So, why was that important? I mean, this is the first year that the County Disability Cup has been launched and successfully run. Why was that important? Why was it important to finally offer a county cup for the disability pathway?
There's obviously been the county cups in the varying formats for years and years and years, and people with disabilities see that on social media, and have always sort of wanted a piece of that for varying reasons. That just hasn't happened, and super great that it's happened this year, and to be a part of the inaugural one has been absolutely amazing, to offer more football and to showcase that sort of football is really, really great.
So from a club's perspective, what was that process like in getting the County Disability Cup up and running? So presuming there was consultation with the clubs as to how that wanted to look, and to try and align it, I suppose, with how the Ability Counts League is run. So it's not too different for the players, but it also sort of levels up the illustriousness of the competition as well.
Oh, definitely. And like I say, we had some consultation with clubs and the committee of the Ability Counts League. And we decided to sort of go, like I say, sort of familiar to what people are used to playing, but also to change it up a little bit. So instead of being 5-a-side, which we normally play in the Ability Counts League, we went 6-a-side, just so it's a little bit different. It's something different than just league games. It's instead of just the cup, it's something different. And it really did have that feel. It sort of had its own sort of FA Cup vibe about it, if you will, to be fair.
Yeah, and it was sort of run in like a Champions League style sort of format as well, wasn't it? So there was the group stages on one day, and then on the actual County Disability Cup finals day, there was obviously 2 semi-finals, the 3rd and 4th place playoff, and then the final. Why do you think running it that way was important as well?
Again, it's back to that sort of similar format in a sense, but the more showcase of disability football, the better. And I think the format worked great of having the winners' day, the sort of finals day of the sort of 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th of the sort of group stages, was great. It just sort of added to the occasion, to be fair.
So let's talk about finals day then. So obviously, you took part in the first semi-final. You're straight on.
Yeah.
How did the actual sort of day itself go? Obviously, your team finished third in the end, so won the third and fourth place playoff final. What was the experience like? Was there any sort of key moments that sort of stick in your mind as to that was brilliant?
Yeah, well, all of it, to be fair. And I mean, we say we try to keep it as normal to the league and with little touches of difference here, there. It was completely different occasion. It felt like an occasion, like arriving sort of in the minibus with the boys and having sort of officials directing them to a changing room and to see their sort of badge on the changing room door. Just that, as soon as you get there, already is leveling expectations of players and potentially overwhelming them as well.
And do you think they were potentially slightly overwhelmed by the occasion? But it's the first time that's ever happened, isn't it? And it's a massive. It effectively is, the FA Cup of their pathway for them, isn't it? So
100%. The occasion got to a few of them, to be fair.
And as a coach, how do you manage that? Because it's the first time for you as well, I suppose, in that sense as well. So how do you try and sort of manage that?
I mean, sort of after that, the first game, the semi-final, we lost quite heavily, to be fair, and we went back to the changing room, and it was just about grounding the players, really, bringing them back down. Sort of preparations weren't right with it being sort of rearranged and stuff, but nobody's going to make any excuses. But it's just about bringing them back down. They were really frustrated with themselves that they felt that let themselves down and each other down, and it potentially could have quite spiraled negatively rapidly. But it's just about putting an arm around those players, having a word in the rear, saying the right things to a few of them, and just letting them believe in themselves. And they turned it around and played completely different in the sort of third, fourth playoff, and showcased to everybody there what they actually are potentially capable of playing football like.
And do you think in terms of someone who's sort of now had the County Cup final experience, do you think the little touches make a big difference in terms of the overall experience? So having music when you walk out of the tunnel, when actually walking out of the tunnel, and having the music as they walk out, having social media coverage, just the sort of the general little touches that, like I say, the club logo on the changing room doors, those little things. Do you think that just elevates the occasion?
Oh, like without a shadow of a doubt. Like it's all those little things that add up to the whole bigger picture, for sure.
And why is it so important now to maintain this and sort of try and develop the County Disability Cup to grow and get bigger and bigger and better each year?
For it to get bigger and better, there's lots of things that need to sort of change and discussions to have and things like that. I've got no doubt that it will. A lot of things that have sort of happened from it, I was talking to you about earlier, because of the media coverage, the social media coverage that the finals got. People have been coming and starting conversations with me. Oh my God, didn't know, like, the standard of football was that great. Your team played really well. And it's just sort of engaging the wider audience of, it's great people with disabilities knowing about this Disability Cup. It's about shouting about it to absolutely everybody and just sort of opening people's eyes to it.
So that sort of led us quite nicely on to sort of a bit of a concluding question, really. So what does the future then, or what do you hope the future now looks like, not just for, the County Disability Cup, but the disability pathway in Lincolnshire as a whole? I'm assuming it's more people involved, whether that be playing, volunteering, coaching, whatever that might look like, and just a general sort of, growth of the pathway as quickly as possible, I'm assuming?
Oh, yeah, 100%. There's just so much available for clubs to support. Like say, they just don't need to feel alone anymore. And you sort of mentioned earlier the Comets program, which is a disability specific design program to get young people with disabilities involved in football between the ages of 5 and 11. And then there's other sort of player pathways and programs that clubs can sort of jump on board with and whether that's just getting groups of people with disabilities playing football in a casual way, or it's them becoming affiliated and playing in the Lincolnshire Ability Counts League. And I mean, we haven't really spoke about youth disability football this evening, but we spoke about first of the Disability Cup. The county held its first ever youth-friendly disability event a few weeks ago at Boxford Town in partnership with Special Olympics Great Britain, and that was like a first ever, and it was absolutely amazing to see so many teams there participating and just having fun and having that. Although it was a friendly festival, there were fixtures, there were no sort of winners or whatever, but just to see sort of the interaction between the teams and sort of giving people that first experience of this is what sort of competitive football could look like, and giving those people the opportunities has been absolutely astronomical. And that's at a under 16s level, and we've got a well-established sort of open age league, and there's all these other opportunities on the horizon for disability football. And like I keep saying, the support and stuff that's available, the county and disability football in a whole has just never been in such a better place.
And do you think that's part of potentially what's changed in disability football in recent years, is that now there's a lot more younger people thankfully with the introduction of Comets and, you know, the Youth Friendly Festival? Do you think there's more young people between maybe those ages of 5 to 11 or sort of around that sort of age accessing disability football, and there's now those opportunities for them to get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. There's just more opportunities available for people already, but then there's also lots more opportunities that are available in the future.
And there's now, I suppose, through the options for young people with disabilities to play football, there's now a clear pathway that leads them up to competitive football.
Oh yeah, whether it's just a turn up and play session, it's that competitive sort of element. We've now got sort of lost my train of thought, but we've got sort of centres for impairment specific happening in Lincoln with the blind football and stuff. So there's lots of places where people get signposted up to international representing your country level, to just having a kick about with your mates level, and that's incredible.
And to pick out, as one final question, to pick out a highlight from, you know, your immense sort of time and experience in volunteering in grassroots football, what's the one thing that sort of sticks out for you as to, you know, what's a key highlight for you?
It'd be difficult to sort of pick one. As many people who work with people with disabilities, sometimes it's all about the small wins rather than the sort of overall win. But it's just watching those small wins on a daily basis and seeing people grow and flourish and sort of gaining confidence in themselves and that kind of stuff. It's just too hard to say one thing.
Jason, it has been an absolute pleasure to sit and talk with you and find out all about your vast experience in disability football, how the pathways changed and where we might potentially be looking in the very near future. So thank you very much for joining us, and keep up the amazing work in all that you're doing.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.